Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 years, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists, Victoria Jones from Satoshi's Page.
Good evening, everybody.
And I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to issue 1, Bitcoin, the price. Why Bitcoin has rallied to $112,000 record high, while stocks are wobbling. Meanwhile, Bitcoin price suddenly soars as Congress predicted to make history. And then just today, Bitcoin price drops 4% as Trump EU tariff talk liquidates over $300 million. Victoria Jones, what do you think about everyone's favorite topic? The price, the price, the price, and the price of Bitcoin.
Yes, as predicted, this is the season for all-time highs, and we certainly seem to be achieving that, which is very exciting for a lot of people. It's still very much influenced by a lot of companies wanting to invest in Bitcoin and hold it on their company balance sheets, as inspired by Michael Saylor. A dangerous trend, though, is that a lot of them are taking out debt in order to achieve this. And of course, that was exactly what contributed to the Great Depression. So we need to be careful here. The way in which Bitcoin operated from the beginning to 2017 has completely changed. And even though there were predictable price cycles up until that point, the game has changed. Nevertheless, you've still got the underlying influence of the fact that due to the halvings, that influences how the Bitcoin price moves, and so we're definitely towards the high point of that cycle. But of course, it's always influenced by external factors as well. So of course, people will find ways of explaining this who don't fully understand Bitcoin. Obviously, talking about Congress producing legislation, and so clearly that must be the reason why crypto is going up. And then on the other hand, you've got the issue of Trump's tariffs, which are deflation. They have a deflationary effect because they're essentially a way to increase tax, which is a way of reducing liquidity from the financial system. Whereas, part of what everyone was concerned about up until recently was too much inflation. So in many respects, Trump's tariffs have a deflationary effect, which is kind of balancing that out. So even though we're getting an all-time high, I suspect with the deflationary influences that are going on, we might not have as high as a high as we've had in the past, but nevertheless, it's still good to see that Bitcoin is performing as ever, going towards an all-time high in this season.
And I've definitely seen that tweet already. It's a bit of a libertarian salty tears where they say Bitcoin hits all-time high in fiat, but fiat not what it was worth the last time that Bitcoin hit this all-time high. So we are going up, but you're right, Victoria, we might be purchasing less and less items with our 100,000, 112,000 this time. I would agree as well, like you're saying, that in the short term, certainly Bitcoin's affected by buyers and sellers, large amounts of shorts being closed and wrecked when the market changes direction suddenly. But over the long term, it does look like what Tech Dev predicted on Twitter is true, that we're generally in a long-term uptrend. We seem to be driven by the 4-year business cycle, perhaps not even the 4-year halving cycle, but this business liquidity cycle where liquidity goes in and liquidity goes out, and we just seem to be going up. Like Victoria said, they want to link it to the news. They want to say it's Congress. They want to say it's this. But from a long-term perspective, it just seems like price discovery on a new asset class, which is, again, something we've never done before. So the media has no reference. They can't go to history and say, wow, the last time we discovered digital currency, the price ended up to be this much. So we know it'll be that. So we still don't know the price of this thing. All of these banks and other people are getting interested. MicroStrategy, the new theory of business, that you just buy Bitcoin and hold it. You don't need to make anything anymore. It's the infinite jest, destructive theory of business where we are so addicted to this goose that lays the golden eggs that we stop tending for anything else, and everything around us collapses and falls apart. And you can see a lot of this in the conservative political strategy of me first and only me, which we see strongly expressed by this administration. I expect to hear more about this fantastic new philosophy next week at the Las Vegas Bitcoin convention, which has gone hard right, with Vice President Vance speaking, the president's son speaking, and so forth. But what do you think, Victoria? We're in a new world now of Bitcoin price. Like you said, it's large players, sailor banks, corporations, giant Japanese companies buying $1 billion worth of Bitcoin. Do you think they'll get cold feet? How does this affect? Whereas before it was smaller hodlers, we haven't seen retail come back yet, have we?
No, and I think retail are understandably worried because I think Michael Saylor buying a lot of Bitcoin obviously elevates the price, but who's to say the point at which he changes his tune? I mean, at the moment, um, his average purchase price is now around 69,000, which is the previous all-time high. And traditionally, if you look back on Bitcoin's price charts, generally speaking, when we go through the bear market, the price normally doesn't go lower than the previous all-time high, sometimes slightly lower. And so looking back on history, it would seem that Michael Saylor's strategy is, no fail. But the thing is, the financial system is becoming increasingly fragile. And the more these companies rely on having Bitcoin in their balance sheets, and people are still relying on their pensions for their pensions to invest in companies that invest in Bitcoin, all of that system is could be subject to fracture at any moment. And at that point, especially if you don't actually hold your Bitcoin, it could be lost. But also, a lot of these companies could end up having to sell their Bitcoin in a hurry, especially if they've got debts that are due. I mean, obviously, it would take a big crisis for something like that to happen, but it has happened in the past. It doesn't happen often, but when it does happen, it's catastrophic. Like I mentioned earlier, that's exactly what happened with the 1929 stock market crash. Everybody was borrowing money in order to buy stocks. It seemed like such a winning strategy that it could never fail. But of course, the moment it failed, it was devastating for everybody. And I think it's a real shame because, of course, Bitcoin was designed as freedom money, a way in which, people could transact and the financial system could no longer affect them. But at the moment, with all of these companies influencing the price of Bitcoin to go higher, which seems great in the short term, when it goes wrong and a lot of these companies have to sell, they have much bigger pockets than retail, apart from the few large whales who bought Bitcoin originally. All the small people all the retail buyers who've been buying Bitcoin recently because they think that they'll be able to make a profit, they're the ones who will lose out, if it suddenly fails. And the problem with Bitcoin is the price is still volatile, which is great when it's going up, but it can cause real problems when it's going down, especially if you're someone who's come to rely on it. So yeah, if retail aren't buying in, then good for them. I think they're being understandably cautious, but of course the problem is when it suddenly skyrockets and they feel like they've lost out. But don't be like Isaac Newton, where you invest too late and then lose it all.
They're all lining up to be on that chart. That's what it's their destiny. They can't escape it. It's unavoidable. And like you're
Yeah.
saying, yes, the businessmen and the companies that are investing now, they have big pockets. They have no rent expenses, no unexpected medical bills or anything like that. The businessmen can afford to hold forever, unlike the retail investors who freak out if it goes up or down or have actual normal investments. And
Mm.
like you're saying, Victoria, the same thing in my notes. It says that it's ironic that Bitcoin on books creates the same problem that the problem Satoshi tried to solve. He was upset about the transparency of the market, where the home loans that were bad were put in a box and sold as grade A home loans. If you look at Bitcoin, you can track to the individual address how much everyone has. So if these businesses wanted to prove their reserves, they could link right to it. but we know they're not. They're not proving it. Even if they proved it, they could take it away the next second, sell it in a minute, have it all over the place. We have no idea what the Bitcoin and businesses could do if they want to, if the board of directors says so. So it is funny to have this true, free, verifiable money be put back in the box again, and for them to be hailed as business geniuses. We thought of this brilliant pirate at 40 Ponzi scheme, centralized holding Bitcoin scam, which exposes you to security risk. It exposes you to board of directors don't like Bitcoin risk. It exposes you to Michael Saylor's cousin, stole it or lost it or anything. There's so much additional risk by forming these large pools of Bitcoin that they seem obsessed with building. From a network perspective, it's ridiculous. Why would you store all of your data, your valuable data, in one large pool and then build many more large pools where all the data could be stolen? And one more thing I'd say, Victoria, from my notes is just, we know, you and I know, Bitcoin's not a conspiracy theory. It's based on math. It's really straightforward. It's really open, left, right, libertarian, cypherpunk, whoever you are, you can come in and find something in Bitcoin. But because of what's happening in the larger view, companies like Saylor buying it all, rich people buying it all, it seems like something only for the rich. Where the first couple times it was those crafty early nerds that made money. Now it's these stock market Wall Street guys who are just smarter than me and faster and know everything. And anything you could do to convince people that Bitcoin is a conspiracy theory and that it's worthless is being done very successfully. And I really feel like the people are not getting Bitcoin. They're not getting into it. They're not getting their chance to stack some sats, whatever slogan you want to use. Buy a Bitcoin today, or buy Bitcoins with an S like we used to do. Do you think, Victoria, we're so far from the Satoshi vision. If Satoshi came back, I often picture, Jesus throwing the money changers out of the temple, but maybe Satoshi has to throw whoever we've got out of the Bitcoin temple. So we've built yet another worthless structure that's become decayed.
Yeah, I mean, I think Satoshi managed that by the way in which the system was originally designed. And also, we need to recognize that it wasn't just Satoshi. Satoshi produced the initial white paper, but of course, the protocol we have now was worked on by a number of software developers after Satoshi's initial white paper. So Satoshi is given the credit, but it was also all of those early cypherpunks who really kind of finessed exactly how the system was going to work. And I think, if you look back on some of the things that were written around the time that Bitcoin was created, a lot of people anticipated these kinds of problems, and that's why it was designed the way it was. I mean, ultimately, you've got a new system of money here that's based on software, and because it's based on software, the protocol is very robust, and you're up against the existing system, which has developed for over 400 years, but it's very fragile, and so you go through these boom and bust cycles because the system as it is can be manipulated. The idea behind Bitcoin was that it couldn't be manipulated. So at the moment, a lot of these companies are using the corruption in the existing system to take advantage of this new technology. But the two systems are incompatible. And I often say that it's like having an irresistible force against an immovable object, where the immovable object is slightly less immovable than the force is irresistible. And so, when you've got these two competing titans, eventually one's going to fail and the other one's going to win. And it's just a matter of time. You've got these titans fighting it out, and it seems like no one's winning until someone lands the knockout blow. And, all you need is for the existing financial system to crumble, which in the short term will probably knock Bitcoin's price. But once that's happened and everyone kind of picks themselves up and dusts themselves off, it's those who've actually held on to some Bitcoin in their own wallet who will be able to kind of provide the foundation for where we are going forwards. If you take what's happening at the moment to its logical conclusion, that's what's going to happen. It's just the timing that's unknown. No one knows exactly when this is going to play out, but the way in which the system is built, this is what we're looking at happening.
There are many ups and downs ahead of us, and they're going to be devastating and not fun. We'll see how it goes. A lot of things about Bitcoin, like you said, were not originally there. The 21 million units was not originally locked in. That was a debate and discussion. That's been confirmed now, but they could always change it, like they say, if there was enough consensus. We are being told in the chat that YouTube seems to be failing at streaming this week. However, we're on Facebook and apparently one of the other YouTube channels. So we'll try to download it from there and upload it to the original one, but I don't know what the problem is with Restream. I'm getting pretty tired of them. I do the same boring thing every week. I put in the same things, and if they're going to have errors every other week, that's not going to work for me. So, but let's go to the exit question. I brought all the way from Las Vegas the Bitcoin predictor ball, the source of all truth and knowledge in this universe. Victoria Jones, will the price of Bitcoin be higher or lower this time next week?
I don't know. It's been on a pretty good run. Normally, when we find that it's been on a bit of a run, even though the run could keep going, it might have a bit of a pullback in the short term. So I'm going to say lower.
Well, I'm always bullish. It's tough to be, though, with so much external things like tariffs and negative news and the destruction of the United States of America by foreign enemies happening in front of our eyes like a Tom Clancy movie brought to life. But I'll stick with bullish, and I'll stick with higher. But we'll ask the ball, which is what you really want to know, because you don't want to base your investment advice on a human. You want to look at a triangle or a ball or a system like this. That's where the real knowledge is. Will the price of Bitcoin be higher this time next week? And it is very hard to read. It's got a lot of bubbles in it. Check the light. Reply hazy, try again. Reply hazy, try again. Well, I'm glad I brought it all with me. That was worth it. Moving on to issue 2. Trump speaks with presidential seal at crypto dinner. The White House billed as private. Yes, the president used some of his often heard of personal time to host a crypto dinner where investors who invested more than $1 million apiece into his crypto coin, which he owns 80% of and receives the fees for, got to have dinner with the president of the formerly Democratic United States of America. As it says here, Politico, what life is this? The crypto investors who bought a dinner with Trump. The event, billed as the most exclusive invitation in the world, direct quote, is the latest example of the president's stunning pivot from crypto scourge to evangelist. And finally, we have exclusive and horrifying footage of one of the investors, or I don't know what you want to call them, that went to the crypto event. Here it is, footage from Twitter of a man in a what looks like a 3D printed rabbit head walking into the event as the protesters chant, "Show us your face, show us your face." This is now pretty much the worst of all possible worlds for the presidential NFT, presidential crypto coin type program. We have the president having dinner with anonymous donors, including a man in a 3D printed rabbit mask. Victoria Jones, what do you think of the president's crypto dinner? Pretty much the largest grift since last week's $400 million jet from Qatar.
Yeah, it's not ideal, really. I mean, a lot of people always had concerns about government going this way and presidents taking personal advantage of that position. And a number of laws have been written and set up to try and prevent that from happening. You know, corruption in politics is a big concern for everybody and has been for a long period of time. And of course, you know, situations like this suggest that, you know, if people can get away with it, they're going to. And unfortunately, it's the weaknesses of our existing system. A lot of people like the fact that we have a government. They feel it provides a level of protection, especially welfare protection, if things go wrong. But of course, we pay a high price for that in the fact that, you know, you have centralized organizations who make decisions over the way in which our lives should be run. And as time goes by, those laws become more and more complicated and more problematic. And, you know, this is an example of that.
It is interesting. I hear a lot of people saying, "Oh, it's better because it's in public. The government's always been for sale. It's always been a scam, but now he's doing it publicly." And I want to tell you from historical example, it's not better when it's public. It's not better when the KKK stops wearing masks. It's not better when they're out there in the street doing whatever they want and being as corrupt as they want. This is a horribly corrupt event. This is the culmination of corruption. This is so far beyond what we used to talk about with NFTs. We used to talk about fan clubs and your favorite band having a concert and inviting you because you held the NFT. We used to talk about maybe a famous actor could have their own coin, sell their coin maybe for environmentalism or some kind of positive thing to give the money away and then have a dinner like this. We never pictured in our wildest dreams that the president of the United States would have a $300 million for himself private personal dinner where allegedly he uses the seal of the United States, which is specifically against the law, at the dinner and keep the money and just keep the money. And that everyone would say, oh, it's totally fine that he made $300 million for that dinner yesterday, even if nothing happened. And it sounds like things did happen. They're starting to get, we were in many phases here. First, we were in the, I can't believe the president's having a crypto dinner phase. Then the actual dinner happened. Now we're in the post-crypto dinner phase where the media is going to do everything they can to find out who this man in the rabbit suit is and so forth. This is a horrible decision. I want to say that this decision it goes down in the series of horrible decisions going back to that movie that Denzel Washington did about the drug kingpin. I think it was called American Gangster. And he was completely unknown. The FBI knew nothing about this kingpin until he went to a Muhammad Ali fight in a chinchilla coat that no one at the fight could afford. It made him stick out just like Mr. Rabbit here, who's made a horrible decision. I can only hope this is performance art or some kind of $1 million joke that someone has put together. If you are really this evil genius in your rabbit costume and you showed up to the thing to bring this attention to yourself, you are a true absolute fool. And I don't know how you got the billions of dollars or millions or whatever to buy this Trump coin and so forth. It's a mysterious and magical world out there, Mr. Rabbit. Certainly wish you the best, whatever. I have no information about the rabbit. But Victoria, what do you think about this phase 3 that we've entered where obviously the guest list of the crypto dinner will be found out? And if they do receive any favors or any legal or benefits otherwise, there will be a list. I don't know if anything will happen, but that list will exist. The corruption will be on paper and everyone will know. I don't know if there'll be any penalties or anything, but what do you think about this incredible new phase of crypto dinner that we're in?
Well, it's just, if you understand what's going on, it's disturbing. But the thing is, a lot of people just don't understand and they're so busy interacting with their own lives, they don't have time to care. And even if they did care and they could, what can they do about it? So most people, like most things, they just ignore it and kind of carry on. And it's very difficult to know what to do in these sorts of situations. I mean, the only thing that gives me hope is the fact that the way in which Bitcoin has been designed is so robust. All we can hope for is the point at which the existing system collapses and you've got a really strong infrastructure here with which to kind of build again. But of course, that transition is going to be horrible for lots of people. And all of this corruption just makes it even more horrible in the process. And so, anyone who's involved in this, they kind of have a choice. Do they go along with the corruption because they think, great, let's make hay while the sun shines and we'll jump on the bandwagon? Or do you stand back with a bit more wisdom and understand the bigger picture of what's going on and recognize that, some of these choices are a fool's game. They might make you money in the short term. I mean, we've been seeing this for years. A lot of these meme coins and altcoins, they'll have huge spikes, but then the price will crash and then they never recover. And there's been enough of those situations happening now that enough people should know that this is how the story plays out. However, there are some people who've done really well out of it. And, there are people who want to follow on that trajectory. But, anyone who's going to do some serious study and use a bit of wisdom, just, stay well away or use only small amounts, if you really like gambling. But, there are some people who aren't going to take that advice. But for the average person who's interested in Bitcoin, and hopefully they're the ones who are watching this channel, just be warned, don't look at these people green with envy and think that's something you need to copy. Because, as we've seen time and time again, these things will play out in the fullness of time. And you really don't want to be on the wrong side of history when it does.
It is worth noting that all other technologies have been subverted. When the radio started out, you could have your own radio station, community radio. When newspapers started out, you could print your own pamphlet, you could have your own newspaper. When television started out, you could have your own television station. And when the web started out, you could have your own web page. And none of those are true anymore. Even the web page thing, everyone has a Facebook, they have a Twitter. I almost said X.com. I don't think I'm going to start doing that. But yes, you can have all of those things as long as they're owned and controlled and not on your own, which is the way that the web was originally designed. As you can see, we've drifted quite away from the original idea of having your own server and hosting your own data and talking to other servers, which obviously didn't work when one of those servers went viral and got all the traffic. So we changed the way the internet was built in a horrible way that's trapped us by advertisers and Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and other companies that censor what you say and control what you say. The internet might go back that way, but like Victoria said, with Bitcoin, it's in the DNA of the technology. Bitcoin itself is the Trojan horse with Trojans inside it. And inside of that is another Trojan horse with more Trojans inside it. And the business people have taken it inside the walls and they think they've tamed it. And it's a really great horse. And they're going to make a lot of money with this horse. But they can't get away from the original design of Bitcoin and the reality of the code and the way that it runs and the way that it doesn't care. Bitcoin doesn't care about them. And they think that once they've acquired a lot of it and they've gone to all the meetups and all the meetings and all everything and have their conventions, that they will get to the developers and they will acquire this power over Bitcoin. As we saw last time when they tried to take over Bitcoin with the Bitcoin 2x debacle with Coinbase and the other largest companies in Bitcoin trying to say, no, you should let us maintain the code, not that open source thing that actually built Bitcoin. Us, the companies. And they're going to try it again and they're going to fail again. And there's going to be this Bitcoin adoption, Bitcoin unadoption, Bitcoin adoption type thing that happens. And everyone will say it's dead. And they'll say the companies have left you. The governments have left you. You have nothing left except for the code and the network effect that just keeps going up. More and more users every day, more and more wallets downloaded, more and more price going up, et cetera, et cetera. It just keeps happening. But yes, we're gonna have to wait forever. And still going back to what we've said before, but I think it's worth saying again, the right-wing Bitcoiners have had incredible successes. They have made incredible friends at the highest level of the formerly Democratic United States government. But I think that in the long term, they've set us back. Bitcoin is for left wing and right wing. If we were in the middle, we could get people from both sides. By being so much on one side, whichever side it is, doesn't matter, we're going to get less people from the other side, and we're going to guarantee a reaction from the left. The more that crypto goes right, the more that the Trump dinner is celebrated, the more that people say, it doesn't matter that the president made $300 million or $1 billion or whatever it is off of his own coin, and that he's selling his own NFTs, and that he has his own exchange called World Liberty Financial. And all of this is happening with many foreign governments who wish to give him money, perhaps in a less direct way than bribing him with an old jet, which again is a great way to get rid of an old jet that can't even fly into small airports. Most of his golf courses being near small airports. Victoria, what do you think about the idea that I keep espousing, that the right wing may have won, and it's wonderful to win, and in the short term, it seems like they are on top of the world, but in the long term, this dual left and right strategy would be more successful, and especially thinking of this Bitcoin conference, which now seems horribly right wing and perhaps destined to stay that way. Like eventually they'll be displaced by a left and right conference, or a hard left conference. Who knows? What do you think, Victoria?
Well, the thing is, Bitcoin itself is agnostic. I mean, at the moment, it's very right wing because a lot of corporate companies are getting involved in it. I mean, capitalism is ultimately crony capitalism. It's about a lot of these companies taking advantage of the way in which government is set up and the way in which they can influence the laws in order to be successful. And so at the moment, they are capitalizing on that, use the pun. And so for them, it's all jam tomorrow, and they're really enjoying getting together and celebrating their success in that respect. But again, it's like we said earlier. At the moment, they're able to exploit the fact that you've got an incorruptible system that's being adopted by a corruptible system, and eventually the incorruptible protocol will disrupt the corruptible system, and at that point, their game no longer is successful. Crony capitalism will be broken by Bitcoin. And so at the moment, they can't see that and they think they're winning, which is why I think a lot of these conferences do appear to be more right wing. But, there are a lot of people with left wing politics who are interested in Bitcoin because they're interested in how it helps society. And it's a very different focus. But, politics, the way in which politics is designed, it's kind of very left and right. Whereas there's something for everybody in Bitcoin, whether you're left or right, it kind of takes the ideals of both systems and kind of marries them together. That's the advantage. It's not right wing or left wing when it comes down to the actual protocol. And it disrupts both systems. And so it's quite amusing, really, to see all of these businessmen celebrating, more capitalism because of this great Bitcoin thing. But if that's the case, they really don't understand what they've got themselves involved with, and I'll watch with great glee when it all falls apart because they don't deserve to be celebrating like this. It's not right.
It's also worth examining their attitude as they do this. All of the businessmen are focused on a world where you cannot trust anyone. In the Adam Curtis documentary, he talks about how John Nash, the schizophrenic, was famously involved in setting the United States defense policy. And one of the ideas was whatever we would do that's the worst thing ever, the Soviets would do that, or perhaps even 10 times that. And this is the way the businessmen work with each other. Everyone is bribed, everyone is dirty, everyone is corrupt. This is not the way the Bitcoin network works. Eventually, they're going to come to the Bitcoin network with a bribe, with a threat, with an attempt to influence or lean on and coerce the Bitcoin network. And the theory is, because of the code, because of the way the structures have been set up, that the Bitcoin network would withstand this corruption, that the Bitcoin network cannot be bribed, no matter how much money and power and influence you have, which there's never been anything like this in the future or in the past of this world, because it's not a person, it's not a company, it's not a corporation. You can't go to their house. Even if you had all the Bitcoin developers in the room, you couldn't get all the miners to agree. Even if you had all the miners in the room, you couldn't get all the developers, so on and so forth. It cannot be contained and controlled in the way that they have previously contained and controlled things. So it will be fascinating when we reach that point and they realize that. It's likely too late. The virus has already been planted. It's already spread to enough people. But it is so interesting right now that we are clearly in the period of time where the Bitcoin virus is being carried by the businessmen who would hate the realities of the virus. All right, let's move on to the next issue. Check out worldcryptonetwork.com, where we've got short videos created by AI with AI generated names that people actually watch and click on. 70% of our views come from short videos, people who do not want to watch long videos. Hello, short video fans. Thanks for watching. Check out worldcryptonetwork.com for longer videos and shorter videos. Moving on to issue 3, according to watcher.guru on Twitter, just in, JPMorgan, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Citigroup, and other major banks are exploring creating a joint crypto stablecoin. Thomas Hunt, what do you think about this? Well, I mean, the classic Gandhi phrase come to mind. First they compete with you, they fight you, they laugh at you, and then they join you, right? This is the joining phase. We're at the phase where they can't think of anything better than to copy Bitcoin with a stablecoin, or more aptly, to copy Tether or USDC and to make their own version of that. That again, they would control. All of the problems of the old system come back. Who knows how much of this they have? Who knows how much they're printing? Who knows how they hold it or generate it? The board of directors of these banks, interlocking keys, the IT guy at the bank, maybe one IT guy rules them all. We have no idea how this system would be set up. But once again, we've learned nothing from history. We've learned nothing from Satoshi, from the creation of Bitcoin and the internet and so on and so forth. And the banks are now joining us by making a copy of Bitcoin. Victoria Jones, the banks are brand new. They're here at Bitcoin, and they're here to fix it. They're going to make a stablecoin copy that must be better, right? It's stable, must be better.
Yeah, I mean, it's just an old story that's kind of being rehashed, really. I mean, a couple of years ago, we were talking about CBDCs, which are central bank stablecoins. And of course, the whole the narrative went round as to, how bad these were, because just with having the name central bank as part of the name, it was a red flag to everybody. So it's almost like, okay, well, we've got a bit of a PR error here, so let's rename it. We'll talk about stablecoins. And you're right, you're competing with something that already exists. USDC already seems to be struggling when compared to Tether. I mean, Tether seems to have cornered the market as a US stablecoin, and it's managed by a company, but they're already streets ahead of the game compared to the banks. And it's not like this is the first time the banks have tried to encroach on the cryptocurrency space. In 2017, their narrative was blockchain, not Bitcoin, and clearly they could have had a stable coin on a blockchain, and ultimately that's what a stable coin would be. I mean, it's just blockchain, not Bitcoin by another name. So, they're just trying to rehash the same old story. They haven't succeeded with it yet. The longer they try, the longer the ones that are already here, that are already succeeding, just get stronger. So, and it just goes to show how, with all that money, that how powerless they really are in the face of this new technology. And actually, that's quite refreshing to see.
It is the same as blockchain, not Bitcoin. It's stablecoin, not Bitcoin. And I totally agree. They could have done it on a blockchain, even the blockchain that IBM kept their diamonds on, which is still garbage in, garbage out. We don't hear anything about IBM blockchain diamond technology anymore, even though the commercials said it was going to save the world. What's interesting about a stablecoin, I know people like it for trading and they like to hide in it and they think the price goes up and down, and that's important in the day-to-day trading sphere. But in the long term of things, what a stablecoin will do, it will shield you from the potential gains of Bitcoin. If you look at Bitcoin going from $100 to 100K, if you had held $100 of stablecoin from that point, you would still have $100 of stablecoin. It's the worst ever. It's controlled by the banks. We don't know how many units they are. We don't know how many they print. And yet at the same time, you don't get any of the gains of Bitcoin. It also shields you from the losses of Bitcoin, which over 5 years seem to be zero. I don't know anybody that held for 5 years that lost money. Like, if you're really good at it, maybe you're buying and selling all the time, which is totally unnecessary and generates fees for the companies that would like you to buy and sell. Maybe even putting the news out there to freak you out. Maybe even in their app, they beep all the time telling you to buy and sell. How about an app that won't let you sell for 5 years? Please buy $100 of Bitcoin, delete this app, come back in 5 years. That would work. But if you had a stable coin, you would have $100. So we'll see how that goes. Let's move on to the next issue. We've got kind of a grab bag. We're going to do the lightning round. Get ready, Victoria. Updating on some recent news. As we talked about the Coinbase hack a couple of weeks ago, Coinbase perhaps didn't pay their customer support people enough or let them have too much access to data. They were bribed, hacked, violated, and the data was taken, including data for a partner at a $56 billion venture capital firm, had his phone number, address, and other details stolen in the Coinbase hack. Additionally, MicroStrategy has acquired 7,390 Bitcoin for $764 million, continuing to acquire and grow his Bitcoin hoard. This short seller is betting against Michael Saylor to buy more Bitcoin. A legendary short investor, James Chanos, is long Bitcoin short strategy, attempting to buy Bitcoin instead of strategy stock. And an update on the German government, who we told you at the time that it was a huge mistake. They sold 50,000 Bitcoins at $54,000, which has just cost them $2.8 billion in missed profit. Victoria Jones, what do you think about the Germans losing their profit, Michael Saylor being bet against while he continues to bet on Bitcoin, and the continuing fallout from the Coinbase customer service hack?
Well, the one I'm most focused on generally is the person betting against Michael Saylor, because actually that's something I've been saying for a while. It's just like, I don't think this strategy is a good idea in the long run, especially in the current environment. So, I think whoever's doing that is quite smart. I mean, in initially when Michael Saylor got involved in Bitcoin, I was impressed that someone had at least seen the opportunity, but I think he's taken it too far. And I think, those who are taking out loans in order to buy Bitcoin in order to put them in their company, it's totally against the spirit of what Bitcoin's all about. And I know that all of these companies, their goal is to make money, and so we need to do whatever it is we need to do in the meantime. But I think they're setting themselves up for disaster, really. And anyone else who's investing in them, again, it's a bit like the meme coins. You'll do well in the short term, but when things turn in the other direction, it's going there will be trouble. And a lot of these companies, as much as they say they're never going to sell Bitcoin, if something cracks and the only way they can pay off some of the debts they've taken out is to sell their Bitcoin, then they will. They'll go against everything that they've already said. And anyone who doesn't see that is kidding themselves.
There's also the buy and sell strategy that David Bailey's new firm Nakamoto has professed. They think that they're going to be able to ride up and down the Bitcoin market, selling when it's too high, buying back their stocks, selling their stocks when it's too low, and buying back the Bitcoin. Which, if they are successful, you could see MicroStrategy and many other large Bitcoin whales start to adopt this strategy, which could create uneven and unequal flows in the market and potential things that other larger whale traders could then take advantage of, eating up these smaller whales. So yeah, I agree. I don't think Saylor's new plan of selling retail stocks and going the low level to get his Bitcoin money isn't as smart as his previous plans. He keeps going lower and lower and lowering with this borrowing strategy. I think next he's going to be selling hot dogs on the street, and he'll sell them for more if they're bacon wrapped. Still buying the Bitcoin, but like Victoria said, if the board decides it goes the other way, if Bitcoin becomes illegal because they realize that it's full of Trojan horses and Greeks all the way down, just nothing but Greeks, and they can't get them out of the system, and they can't get off of the Bitcoin once they're onto it, they might realize that and crash the price, which would crash Michael Saylor's day. As for the other stories, just to cap a little, it's still unfortunate about this Coinbase hack. Coinbase was so bulletproof for so long in so many ways, but it doesn't seem like they managed their customer data properly. This gentleman now has his phone, his address, probably how much money he has, all stolen in this leak. It's bad, bad, bad. And as we talked about last week, and I'm sure everyone in the chat saying, this is why they shouldn't have to KYC. This is why Bitcoin doesn't have to KYC. This is yet another failed system attached onto Bitcoin. KYC is not in the design, nor is it necessary, and nor is it really a feature. And then finally, just to make fun of the Germans a little bit more, it was so obvious. They were rushing to the gates to sell this Bitcoin. They were so congratulatory and pat on their back about how great it was going to go. Just like the Tesla sale when they got rid of Bitcoin, worst decision ever, which rounds you back to, was this really a good idea for them to hold anyway? If the government's job is to make new programs, whether you like them or not, eventually they're going to have to sell this Bitcoin anyway. So, Victoria, doesn't this story make no sense that the German government bought Bitcoin? If it went up 10 times, okay, great. They buy a new aircraft carrier, whatever they want. Fantastic. They just sold the Bitcoin. So if it goes up 10 times again, you say they did great. They got 10 times the aircraft carrier they could have got, but they didn't get 100 times the aircraft carrier. Isn't this story is always going to be there, and not just for the government, but for everyone, right?
Yeah, I mean it's a struggle that everybody has. It's really difficult to predict exactly, when how the price of Bitcoin will move, because it's subject to things that aren't necessarily in anyone's control. I mean, even if you understand how the Bitcoin price moves, who can predict that Trump's going to come out tomorrow and charge 50% tariffs on the EU? You've always got those sorts of unknown things that can suddenly change things. You've also had currency exchanges that have collapsed in the past that have caused a sudden collapse in the price, and often it will be in tandem with when the price is going down anyway. But those sudden shocks will challenge many traders, whether you're a country or a company. And so, this is why it's tricky, and it'll even be tricky for the Nakamoto company because they'll get to the stage where they really believe that they've nailed their strategy and they'll be winning for a while until they don't. And the moment that they don't, you're back to square one. And there are many stories in the Bitcoin space where people have had to do that for various reasons. So yeah, it's tricky. If the government's managed to sell any at all, then they've got something for their money. And yes, maybe it could go 10 times higher, but I don't know. I mean, in 2019, I promised my daughter that I'd take her to Disney World as a treat between changing from junior school to high school. And I had to sell quite a lot of Bitcoin in order to fund that. But it was something that I'd promised her. And the thing is, she'll never be that age again. And so I'll never get the opportunity to take her on that holiday again. And it's not just about the money. Sometimes it's about the opportunity that it's given you just by the fact that you owned it at all. Um, and so I'll never forget that holiday. And no one can ever take away the fact that I fulfilled my promise to her. That's something that she'll remember forever. And, some of those opportunities are priceless. They're worth more than the money. And our lives are run by things that are more than just the money. And so, yes, there are many times where if we'd held on to the Bitcoin, it could have gone higher. But actually, what other factors were being fed into that decision? Because often those factors are just as important, if not more so.
Well, and we really do, once again, and it's an incredibly difficult book, and I don't expect anyone to read it. It's 1,000 pages plus footnotes, but Infinite Jest defines our society. This Bitcoin is so addictive that for the government, the example for the government, they should hold Bitcoin forever and do nothing else. Anytime that the government spends any money on any program, military or otherwise, it's a waste of money that they could be putting on Bitcoin and holding forever. Anytime that the government sells any of their Bitcoin, they've made a mistake and they should have held forever. It's the same for businesses, it's the same for people. And it leads to this system where, like Victoria is saying, there's no color, there's no light in our world. You can't take a vacation, you can't spend any money because everything that you should do, if this strategy follows and if this investment and this line and these triangles or whatever hold up over 100 years, everyone's going to look at it and say, we should have done nothing but our lives but hold Bitcoin. We should have eaten gruel and stayed at home and not had any entertainment or not had anything in our lives, just held the Bitcoin. And it goes all the way back up. Businesses, it's a mistake to sell. States, it's a mistake to sell. And what's great is the media gets to have it both ways. When the price was down, everyone wrote articles about how MicroStrategy was in trouble, how El Salvador was in trouble, what horrible investments they made, what bad people they were, and all of your family members rubbed it in your face that Bitcoin was terrible and you were dumb for holding it. Now that the price is back up, the same people and the same family members are writing articles about how genius MicroStrategy is and how great El Salvador has done on their Hodl. And your family members are now trying to borrow money off you, etc. The same ones that wouldn't listen to you when the price was down. It's crazy, and it just keeps happening over and over again. And I just don't understand the libertarian perspective of wanting a government to hold Bitcoin. I ask individuals to hold Bitcoin. I want the retail, I want the small people, I want the developing countries. Still, like Andrea said, still I want that. I don't want the state of Arizona to have Bitcoin. And I don't want to read the article about how much they could have had and how much they couldn't have had, because at the core, even if they made 10x or 100x or 1000x, I don't know what number you need, and then they start spending it on programs, even the greatest program ever that you and I both agree with, keeping people healthy, whatever it is, whatever you think is important, the government still sold Bitcoin. Bitcoin's still worth more. The government made a horrible decision to sell that Bitcoin because they could have gotten more. Every business, every human, every person. So, and that's the thing about Infinite Jest is it's this movie that you can't stop watching. Once you start watching it, you stop your clothing, you stop your sanitation, you stop eating, you stop everything. And it's so addictive, and it's a metaphor for drugs. And in this way, Bitcoin is the greatest and most powerful and most dangerous financial drug ever created. And like I was telling my roommate earlier, it's like the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. The asteroid is here. Like, you might be left wing, you might be right wing, you might be a financial genius with the great degrees and whatever. The asteroid has hit your planet. Like, your opinion on the asteroid is great. Like, I wish we didn't have an asteroid. I liked it before the asteroid, whatever. The asteroid is here. The world now exists after asteroid. And I do think we have a second AI asteroid that's out there that will have similar changes, that is coming and is similarly in our orbit and unstoppable, except by those guys in Armageddon. If we could get Ben Affleck and some kind of rehabilitated Bruce Willis back in those oil drillers, they could drill down the asteroid and blow it up. But otherwise, Bitcoin is here, AI is coming, and you have to adapt to it. You can't try to put it back in the box. You can't try to imagine your models beforehand. We had a great model beforehand. It used to work. It doesn't work now. And I think this is just going to keep happening. Victoria, more on this?
Yes, yeah. I mean, I completely agree with you. I don't have much more that I could add to that, but yeah.
Yeah, I really don't get them wanting the states to hold it. I mean, it's fun that states could make money, but it's that same Tesla could hold it. I want them to make cars. Like, MicroStrategy doesn't seem to make anything. Maybe they make some conferences and stuff. It does seem like we're going to run out of initiative and desire to make anything, and that doing anything other than hodling Bitcoin is a waste and a mistake. And it's
For
been
the
true
time
for a
being.
while. Yeah,
For the
for
time
now.
being, I think once you get wide adoption, obviously that's the point when everything changes. But for the moment, yeah, because we're still in a corrupt system that hasn't broken yet, but it will.
Yeah, it does seem like we're just going to shift over, and there'll be a point Bitcoin where everyone wants dollars now, but on the other end, everyone will just want Bitcoin, and the whole system will have shifted, and then we'll see where we are then. But we're running out of time, so let's go to predictions or story of the week. Victoria, are you ready with a prediction or a story of the week? Go ahead.
Well, I have a story of the week, which is kind of connected to the exchange story, from earlier, and it's a cautionary tale on these exchanges. So, obviously I've been around in Bitcoin for a while, and I've tried different exchanges from time to time. And anyway, there was one that I hadn't used for a while, and I kind of thought, well, I'll just revisit, my account with them. And of course, now they've got all of these warnings, especially from the UK, as to, needing to do extra tests and extra information. And so this particular one asked for a tax return. So I was like, okay, I have nothing to hide, I'm honest about my taxes and my crypto holdings. So I sent them my tax return, and I got an email from them that says, "Hello, Victoria. We have received and reviewed the document you uploaded to the app. However, before we can upgrade your account, we require some additional information. Our main aim is to establish the origin of the funds of your total wealth deposited into your account so far. Therefore, in order for us to verify your account for level 3, and as you have deposited only BTC in your account, please provide the official statement from the crypto exchanges you have sent BTC in the past in your account with transaction history and your name, or at least your email address, and some bank statements that show your salaries received or tax return at your crypto investment periods, or any other documents that you think could help us to verify the source of your wealth. For example, a property sale agreement, a proof of inheritance or donation, a loan, plus the corresponding bank statement showing the amount received. If you have invested in DeFi, please provide your wallet addresses or Explorer links and bank statements, tax returns that show your salaries received at your crypto's investment periods. Please note that we can only accept documents that contain your full name and have the date visible. Thank you in advance." It's just like, what the hell? It's like, forget it. I wanted to exchange 10 quid. No, I'm not going to give you all of that information. I mean, can you believe it? And so, I mean, some of these crypto exchanges, I mean, I know the legislation is terrible, but most people are just going to go, I don't think so. So I don't know if they're gonna leave themselves out of business, or how many people are going to continue to want to jump through these hoops. But considering, how much information was leaked through that recent hack, can you imagine if I provided a crypto exchange with all that information, how vulnerable I would be if that got hacked? I mean, literally, you've got someone entire um personal history. And also, some of that Bitcoin, in the UK, you're only meant to keep financial records for 6 years. So some of that information is from 6 years ago. I could have legitimately got rid of that by now, and not been able to provide it. And so I'm just kind of like, okay, the world is getting crazier, including crypto exchanges. So, I think obviously we've seen a number of them fail, a number of them close. The governments are clearly trying to crack down on them, and in order to try and fulfill their obligations, a lot of these exchanges are clearly going to the nth degree to try and get that information. But for myself as a customer, it's like, forget it. I'll go somewhere else. Thank you very much. So yeah. So be warned, folks. If you try and resurrect any of your old crypto accounts, forget it. You might even be better off closing the existing account and starting a new one. But yeah.
It is an incredible amount of information, and everything is really linked to everything else. You're not just giving your savings account, your investment account, but also your spending, what you may have taken in and out of it if you sent it to another account. And like you said, it's not 6 years of data, it's forever of data, and it's all linked together. It never goes away. And if they get that one address at the top, it's possible they could link through to all your other addresses, even tracing them through other exchanges and places you wouldn't think possible. And even here in the United States, we've seen recently this disturbing trend of the Department of Government Efficiency, the DOGE, seems to be breaking into government databases and perhaps uniting all of this information together, which is something that the government silos were designed not to do. Just like the intelligence community before 9/11, they intentionally designed these various departments of governments to not share your information all together, so that if you work at the IRS, you can get access to the IRS data, but you can't get access to all the other social and medical and so forth information. It seems to be, we have limited information at this time, that behind the scenes, the Doge department seems to be uniting this data, which is fantastic for them and for anything that they can sell access to this or whatever, but is horrifying and very bad for you, because just as Victoria said, giving her blockchain address would have linked all of her many accounts, whether it's savings, investing, spending, retirement, all of these just instantly given up. In the same way, this new Doge data nightmare this dystopia that they're building would be the same thing. If I have your social security number, I have your last name, suddenly I have everything you've ever done. I have all your library records. I have all your financial records. I have everything that you've ever done. I have your whole family tree. I have all your kids. I have every place you've ever lived, every phone number you've ever had, all of your data all together, all conveniently and quickly searchable, stealable, copyable, could be in a foreign government's database right now. We have no idea. So there is a horror to this unified and united data structure that we've built. And presumably when it fails hugely on the national and international scale, we will then turn to more secure cryptographic databases like blockchains and other things where your data is encrypted, where Facebook cannot run an advertising business on you. Fun story, I went to a party in San Francisco once with a friend of mine who used to work at Oracle and Zynga and all these Facebook companies. And I met a guy who was one of the early Facebook employees, like top 20. They call themselves by numbers at the startups. He was like 17 or something. And I told him about what a ridiculous system they had built where all of their administrators could break into the data, and how obvious it was that they had built it wrong from the beginning, that all of the data needed to be encrypted on a friend-to-friend scale so that your friends could see your data, and maybe even your friends of friends, but that Facebook thing is neither. Right? Your Facebook thing doesn't need to see all your data unless it's indexing it and selling it to advertisers, which is how they built the internet, the Web 2.0 or Web 3.0, not the original. This new advertiser-based internet always makes you the product. You're always getting in for free, and it seems so great at first, but they're mining it and they're lining it up with all the other data. And this is not going to be seen as acceptable in the future. People are going to look at this and be shocked and horrified that we would allow unencrypted in plain text all of our data admittable to any administrator or higher level administrator who has access to the Facebook or access to the Coinbase or whatever the large, horrible honeypot of data that they've made is. And they made it because it was faster and it was cheaper and it was easier and it was less complicated, and they could scan it for advertising. And that's what's important about the old internet. And that's what this new internet breaks. You can't scan any of my data if it's all encrypted to me. Only my friends, if my friends leaked or whatever, you could scan it, you could create a tool, you could sneak in. But by default, we would not open it up to our friendly third-party Facebook and let them have all of our data to store and search for advertisers because of how bad it is for us and our data. And only through great catastrophe will we be able to learn and maybe spend the money to build it correctly the next time. All right, other things this week. My story of the week is a lot lighter than that, hopefully. I'm in Sacramento this week, so I got to check out the Oakland Athletics, who now play in Sacramento. They're playing at the minor league ballpark where the Sacramento River Cats also play. They are a AAA franchise, and it's a heck of a lot smaller than the Oakland Coliseum. The Oakland Coliseum used to hold 65,000 people, and tickets were $20 because the seatings was so large and there's seats everywhere. The new Sacramento Stadium holds 14,000 people with 2,000 people on the lawn, and tickets are still cheap because nobody wants to go. Yesterday it was 85 degrees in Sacramento. It felt like 105. The sun was blasting in our face the whole time, and as you can see, there's no shade for the stands at all. It gets as hot as 100, 110 in Sacramento. It's much less hot in Oakland. And it was interesting to see how the MLB, the major league product, was so devalued by placing it in a minor league park. I had no problem coming late to the game. I had no problem leaving early. I don't even think it should count for the major leagues. I think it should be an exhibition game. It felt like spring training. Nothing was on the line. No one was clapping. There were no chants. There were no cheers. Even the Angels fans who were inexistent were pretty laid back and chilled. So it's a disaster what this one billionaire has done to sports in Oakland and baseball in general. But it was fun to go to a game and remember the old times. It was interesting to see how the pitch clock continues to change the game and made it very quick, or at least faster than it was before, which a lot of people liked and I'm mixed on. But let me know what you think in the comments. You probably hate baseball. Most computer geeks hate sports. But thanks to everybody for joining us. Be sure to give us a thumbs up down below. I found out that Zoom, or one of the things, is cutting off the show even before I say bye-bye, about 3 seconds after that, no matter what I do. Apologies to everyone who didn't get to see the show or was sitting there refreshing the page. Restream It has failed us for a second week in a row. I'm likely going to look into canceling that. I'm not sure what to do. It's nice. It usually spreads it out to many services, but today it seems to have failed to spread it out to YouTube, which is our original place where all the videos go. So I don't know what's happened to Restream and their software this week. But thanks to everybody for joining us. Until next time, bye-bye.
Bye.